Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Natter At Noon. I reckon you probably thought I was done with this boring ass podcast, but alas, we're back. I've got a proper microphone this time, a proper podcasty microphone. Check it out. And we're in uni at the moment. I'm kind of putting off important coursework because I need a break. Simple as that. I've been doing too many things, and I just want to do something that maybe takes my mind off it for a couple minutes. So today's topic is honestly something I could write essays about. It's something very close to me, a topic I'm very passionate about. Femininity. I can never say that word. I might have said it right the first time, I don't know. But it's a word that I have always kind of struggled to define. Because, in theory, what is femininity, right? What is it? What does it mean to be feminine? A lot of the time, we attribute being feminine to characteristics, character traits, parts of what a person is like, personality-wise, perhaps being quiet. Being quiet, not speaking, not being too loud is considered as feminine once upon a time. We might attribute it to physical characteristics like having, long hair or being short or having a high voice or having big lips or whatever. But then, those sort of characteristics that are considered stereotypically feminine, again, it's like trends. They come and they go. They change. The definition is ever changing, which is why, personally, I have such a big issue with wrapping my head around it. Because what does it mean? The definition changes all the time. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird topic. But it's something that is very intriguing to me because it's what does it mean to be feminine? What does it mean to be masculine? It is always, from day one, been something that has been made apparent to me, and goodness, I was never allowed to forget it, that I am effortlessly not feminine. No matter how hard I try, no matter how much I would change about myself, I just naturally seem to deviate from the stereotypical feminine norms. I don't know. I think the earliest sort of instance where I can recall this happening was from about the age of 8, which is honestly abysmal to think about, because if you saw me at the age of 8, first of all, I don't understand why that is something that 8-year-olds are even thinking about. Why do you care about gender norms already? Why is that already something in your mind? That was not something I thought about until it was constantly sort of brought up to me. Do you know what I mean? Basically, long story short, I was basically told that I looked like a man, and it was really weird. It was never I looked like a boy. I think I probably got those. Yeah, I definitely got those comments, I remember occasionally, but it was always emphasis on man. And this is to an 8-year-old child. I'm sorry, I don't care. That is not a compliment. No, I mean, no 8-year-old girl is going to think that being called a man, especially clearly in a I don't know if it's but it's clearly meant to be in an insulting tone and way and whatever, given the context. They're not going to think of that as a compliment. So I don't care. If you're going to tell me, just look at it on the positive side. Maybe they were complimenting you, or, whatever. Maybe it just means that they think you look strong or what. I don't give a fuck. Bro, that's not a compliment. Okay? Clearly, they were meaning to point some sort of fun at it. And like I was saying, it's amazing that that was even the case, because if you knew me and you saw what I looked like when I was 8, I don't even understand how man comes close to that. I mean, I was a very scrawny, sort of nerdy little kid. I've always been kind of that way. Maybe at times, I did look a bit like a boy, but I was never sort of outwardly the most sort. I always had the label tomboy put on me quite a lot. She's a tomboy. She's not a girly girl. She's not like the other girls. Stuff like that. But I never really identified with either of those labels, because in my mind, I was never really that much of a tomboy as the other tomboys in my class. Like, they were always into sports. They were always really, like, rambunctious and stuff like that. I was always, like, a little bit more reserved and more into just, I guess, like, I don't know, geeky shit. Like, I mean, yes, most of my friends were guys in primary and secondary school. That just happened to be the case. I didn't really get along with girls as easily, and the ones that I were friends with, they never usually tended to last, whereas with guys I tended to have a lot more lower maintenance, long lasting friendships, if you get my drift. But you know, they weren't really boyish boys either. Like, none of us were really into any of that sort of stuff. But because just because most of my friends were guys, I was automatically given that label of being a tomboy. So it's very sort of like black and white thinking, and I honestly think that kids are sort of raised to think this, and then later on, like, grow up and, like, grow out of it, and, you know, kind of come to find their own definition of what, I guess, to be feminine or to be masculine is. Because I would say I'm definitely a lot more feminine now than, like, I was previously, especially as a teenager. But that doesn't mean that, you know, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know, like, I for instance, I attribute, you know, to be feminine is to be smart, you know, caring, kind, and I hope I try my best to encompass all of those things in my work, in my social life, in my, like, daily life, whatever. But it's just a really, it's just a really weird thing that I think people pay way too much attention to, because I'll be honest, the pinnacle sort of moment where this sort of stuff, like, was rife was when I was about 13. I had long hair pretty much, bar maybe, like, 2 years of my life. I had really long hair, like, down to here or whatever, for the majority of my childhood. And I got to the age of 13 where I was just sick of it. I was sick of the maintenance. I didn't like how it looked. I wanted something different. And I will be honest, there was a lot of, like, I guess, confusion in there. I don't know if you would call it gender dysphoria, but I didn't really, you know what I mean? Like, it was weird. Well, not weird, but you know what I mean? Like, I wanted a change. And so I got my hair cut for the first time since I was like a baby to what would be considered a boy's haircut. I think it was kind of like a pixie cut. And oh my gosh, like, I was not allowed to live that down. And, you know, I look back at it now and I think, okay, yeah, kids just being kids. Like, obviously teenagers especially, like, they become real dickheads by the time, like, they hit age 13, 14. But oh my gosh, like, I really cannot imagine giving a single shit myself. Like, at the time I didn't give a single shit if anyone else did it. Now I especially don't give a shit. Like, I really don't understand why the hair on someone else's, like, head matters to someone else. But yeah, basically it was rife. Like, I was never allowed to live it down. I was from day one told that I was a boy, that I was a man, that I looked like a boy, that I was called all sorts of, like, names and derogatory names and slurs. I was told I was a lesbian, I was transgender, I was blah 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 blah. But you see, the thing is, I could never win, because literally, like, a year or two before that, when I had first joined year 7, I joined year 7 with hair, like, down to my hip in plaits, like Katniss Everdeen plaits. I had, you know, I was wearing a skirt, I was wearing jewelry, I had my name in sequins on my backpack, and still, one of my, like, best guy friends at the time was still being made fun of and told that he was basically dating a boy because he fancied me at the time. So I'm like, girl, I'm being told I look like a man when I'm literally presenting as the most stereotypically feminine way as I can, and now I'm being told that I look like a man now that I'm not. So really, I don't understand, like, what is, you know, I can't win. And it really did quite a number on my, like, self-identity, because naturally, I think, and if you do, like, feel this as well, let me know, but naturally, I think people, and women especially, we attribute femininity and looking and being feminine to appeal, like how attractive we are, sex appeal, stuff like that. So naturally, it didn't take very long for me to associate, oh, I don't look like how I'm supposed to look like because I'm being called a man, so clearly I must be ugly. I'm not good at being a girl. I'm not good at looking like a girl. I'm not good at acting like a girl. And therefore, I am not deemed appealing or attractive to the opposite gender. So, no guy would ever want to date me because they're going to get told that they might as well be gay, right? So that was my dilemma. So it really did a number on my identity, quite a bit in my self-esteem. Not so much now because I don't know, maybe age, wisdom, who cares? But it's just, it's something that I think about because actually I look back at like older relatives, family friends, people who were teenagers maybe during the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, whatever. And even like public figures like Rihanna and, Miley Cyrus and stuff like that. And a lot of them, girls had short hair phases, particularly during like maybe the 80s or whatever. A lot of guys had long hair phases, especially if they were into like the grunge, rock, alternative, whatever, metal scene during the 70s, 80s, 90s, like Kurt Cobain, whatever else. And I don't think, from what people have told me who have lived that time, no one really gave half a single shit. For a society that was supposedly like less accepting of that and more behind, in comparison to now, and less educated and knowledgeable about, these sort of gender identities and roles and sexuality and whatever else, no one cared. Like, a girl could cut their hair short and they would still be seen as just a girl who happens to have short hair. There wouldn't automatically be all this scrutiny towards her saying, oh, you're a boy, you're a man, you're transgender, you're a lesbian, you're this, you're that. It was just something that people did, and whether it was a phase or not, whether they stayed like that, who really cares? But it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't so quickly, with a label. It was just something that people just did, and no one really gave a toss, because I think it was just like the in thing, your teenage years, your adolescence are the years of experimentation, right? So anyways, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling because I don't really have a set script. I never have a set script for these kind of things. It's kind of just like whatever comes to my mind. But let me know if this is something that, I think this is something that definitely affects a lot of people because, it all links with everything, you can even attribute the male side to it too. Like, of course, we're talking about femininity, but then comes the side of toxic masculinity. Do you know what I mean? Like, just so ready to throw a label and box someone who is doing something that's a little bit different. Like, okay, maybe, for example, like Harry Styles is wearing a skirt in one of his shoots. Okay, cool. Does that mean he's automatically gay though? Do you know what I mean? Like once upon a time in certain cultures, men just wore skirts or kilts or whatever, and it was just seen as the done thing, and they went home, to their wives, and no one bat an eye to it. Like, it's just, I feel like, and these are the same types of people throwing all these labels around that get so gobsmacked and so up in arms about the fact that, people in the LGBT community are finding all sorts of different ways to label themselves. Like, you do realize you are putting people in boxes and you are, like, sticking labels on people as soon as you get the chance every time. So why is that okay, but it's not okay for someone else to label themselves or define themselves in however way they want to, just because you don't personally understand that label? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's weird. It's a, like, double standards thing or something. And, but yeah, like, Rihanna had short hair, Miley Cyrus had short hair, and I don't think really anyone attributed that solely to their sexual... I'm pretty sure Rihanna's straight, for one thing. If she's not, then do correct me on that. But, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like a whoa, do you know what I mean? It was, like, just like a new look. All it was a new haircut. And that's all it is. But now I think, it's something that, it's all these gender roles and all that, they're all too, you know what I mean? I don't know how to like explain it. And I do think something like this does contribute to the male loneliness epidemic, for example, because we've got all these things, like I was going to say before, you know, on the opposite side, we've got the toxic masculinity, you know, aspect of things. And I really think that, you know, that is one of the contributing factors to things like the male loneliness epidemic, because, you know, a lot of young men are under scrutiny for things that should not matter. Like, you know, I mean, boil it down, guys. Once upon a time, we were all like cavemen, shitting and pissing outside, and we were just like running around trying to like survive the next day to have our next meal. Like that, you know, there was no gender, there was no race, there was no sexuality, there was no class, there was no language, there was no this, that, or the other. We all just saw each other as the same thing. And okay, maybe that's a very simplistic mindset to have in today's modern society, but I really think that we have become so fixated and so obsessed with finding new ways to segregate ourselves. You know? I mean, God, like, why are we so obsessed with putting up imaginary borders amongst each other? Like, oh, you're not white and I am, and you are a male and I am, but you're also a non-binary male and I'm not, and like, and you're not just black, you're also light skinned, which means you have more privilege this way, and da 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 da. Like the whole talk about privilege as well. Like people are just trying to find whatever ways they can to, you know, either one-up each other in terms of like, oh, I have more privilege than you, da-da-da-da, or the complete opposite. You know, just be a victim. Or you can't say this or that because you have privilege, or you can't do this or that because you're privileged, or you can do this or that because you're privileged. And I do understand to an extent, obviously, you know, it's a fact. Societally, I have certain privileges that someone else might not. And then, as well as that, someone else might have privileges that I do not as well. I'm very fortunate to be in the place that I am, and born into the country that I am born into, but I don't think that should be the be all and end all. And I think a lot of the time, particularly with the youth of today, I'm saying this as if I'm like 95 years old. I am part of the youth of today, but I think a lot of the time people use that as just like a way to just give up, throw all their toys out the blanket. Oh, you know, you've got nepotism, or you've got white privilege, or you've got whatever else, pretty privilege. Pretty privilege is something else I've heard as well, which I do think is real, but you know, I obviously think it's real, but you know, the point is, I acknowledge that these things are real. I just will not acknowledge or accept that people should use them as just dead set reasons to just not bother trying. Like, okay, someone else might have more connections in, I don't know, we'll use my own situation. Someone else might be getting further in the music industry because they've got the connections, because they've got, you know, the nepotism, because they've been networking. Welcome to the music business. Do you know what I mean? Like, but also that shouldn't just be a reason that you just say, oh, well, they've just got that because they're just there because they've got, you know, they're nepotism babies, because they've got the connections. I could never do that because I don't have the connection. Well, with that mindset, yeah, you won't get to where they are, because I think we're also, you know, it's just become too much of a safety blanket for people to just give up, essentially. You know, I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there are people from all sorts of backgrounds that have made it to success, their version of success, to where they are today, no matter their background, no matter their race, no matter their, you know, class, whatever. There are always going to be those little miracle stories and whatever. And I think, yes, obviously there are certain factors. Money especially. I think money's the root of it all, realistically. If you don't got money, life is going to inevitably be a lot harder. So I think money is obviously going to be a lot more useful to have. And it's going to, you know, if you have that privilege of having a comfortable amount of money, or even more privilege of having a lot of money, then yes, you're going to get where you want to go a lot easier, because you have more resources to... You're given more resources to get there. But I don't think that, you know, it should just be that's it. Like, it's very black and white thinking. You know, there are other ways to get where you want to go. You know, it's not just like white and black. It could be grey. It could be violet. You know what I mean? Like, I've kind of diverged from the topic at hand, but that's okay, because I think If I just stuck to one topic in these podcasts, I would probably combust because I can't even stick to one topic in a 5-minute conversation. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts and if this made any sense to you, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.